Hello, everyone. This is day 19, and welcome. Reading through 1st and 2nd Kings, now a continuation of 1st and 2nd Samuel, reading chapters 15 and 16 today. By way of a recap, we read in the previous reading, evil kings. Some were decent, but inadequate at offering any sort of reversal of the course that these people were on. Maybe they were maybe the better kings were slowing things down, but they were not stopping the trajectory. Meanwhile, Elisha dies, and so we were left with a variety of reflective questions. With Elisha being dead, is God going to raise up another prophet? Even if so, how effective is the prophet going to be? The good people seem to remind us that not all are bad, but they hardly seem to do anything to change things, as we've seen in 1st and 2nd Kings. Contrast that to 2nd Samuel, where the prophet Nathan went to David, and David changed. That's a big difference in what's going on in 2nd Samuel and now 2nd Kings. That's part of why David, even though his flaws were plentiful, yet he did respond to the prophet, and responded to the voice of God. Therefore, let's see the other reflective questions that we had. It said God was having mercy on these people. So what happens when that mercy expires? What are the limitations and boundaries? And if this is mercy, boy, it's going to get bad if that mercy ends. And it also said in the end of near the end of chapter 14 that God remembered them, basically, that He wasn't going to God wasn't going to forget them. But what does that imply? What does that mean? Sure, it's the last reading had these subtle but yet stark moments where we're reminded that God remembered them, but frankly, what's God going to do here? Okay, so we get now into chapter number 15, introduced to another king. I mean, again, this is very fast, going through the reigns of different kings. Many of these kings end up being something not much more than a footnote. However, you have Azariah, a king that does mostly well. He's approved of by God, but an echo once again. What's his issue? He does not eliminate the high places. The people are going and worshiping the wrong gods at the wrong places rather than worshiping the right God at the temple in Jerusalem. I mean, we're getting a sense of importance here via repetition, that getting rid of the high places, when that happens, we realize that something is really going right. That is the marker that there is true success. And so Azariah, he's going to end up with a skin disease, it says. Your various translations that you might be reading could say other things. Leprous. To these people, all skin diseases were pretty much synonymous with what they called leprosy. This was a very impure kind of issues. Think about it. In any kind of culture, especially in that culture of ancient Middle Eastern, ancient Israel, the body politic is very important. The body boundaries, socially, okay, what you let into your community and what leaves your community is very, very important. Anything that comes into your community, your village, it has to be pure and clean. You don't want the profane to come into your community. Anything anybody that's going to choose to disassociate with your community, that's going to leave your community, especially in a collectivistic, a community-oriented environment, if you're going to leave that community, you're going to become defiled and impure. You left us. You left your home. We go to the New Testament, into Luke's gospel, the prodigal son. I mean, he leaves community. That's why this is a big deal. So, it also, within the physical body, this kind of idea is retained and is representative. What goes inside of our physical bodies has to be pure. That's why there was strict rules of washing hands and of what to eat and what not to eat. Likewise, within the Hebrew story, anything that departs the body is then going to be profane. It's why in the Hebrew scriptures, different things can make someone impure. Childbirth, menstrual cycle, ejaculation, all these things made people impure. Something evacuating the body, because it was representative of their social concerns. People are going to leave us. Once they leave us, they are unclean. Okay, so when Azariah gets the leprous disease, it's, the leprosy, something there at your margins of your body where there's open sores and something's going to evacuate your body, that leads to a perpetual uncleanliness. I realize I'm discussing this more than what its couple of sentences might merit, but these are principles that help us with reading all of Scripture, not just this part. And so it's a very defiled kind of disease that Azariah has. Let's see, we're going to come to King Zechariah. This isn't the same as Zechariah the prophet of the Old Testament. He is evil, though, like his fathers, it says. In fact, Zechariah, there's going to be this instance where there's going to be this fighting, and it's going to show, pregnant women were ripped open. This is reminiscent of the period of the judges before there were kings. The reason why there was a social reason for a king was because, in 1 Samuel, was because coming out of the period of the judges, there was disorder and chaos. Things like cutting open pregnant women, that was par for the course, or so it would seem. These, obviously, this is unflattering kind of writing in history. But more deeper than just what's recorded is what it symbolizes, the disorder in the land. Then as we go on, there's going to be the king Menahem. He is evil, and it's in verse 18, he does not repudiate the sinful ways of his fathers. So then again, once again, we have another marker of success. Tearing down the high places is going to be a marker of success, as well as repudiating the sins of the fathers. Then we get to another king, Pekahiah. Same thing with him. He is evil. He does not repudiate the sins of his fathers. Then, the Pekah, same thing. Evil, but does not repudiate the sins of the fathers. Then we get to Jotham, one who finally is a decent king. However, it says he does not destroy the high places. So, two markers for success: destroying the high places and repudiating the sins of the father. Getting the bad out of the land. Jotham does build a gate to the temple, interestingly. Once again, we're reminded of the temple. They're not getting rid of the false temples with the high places. But we're remembering that there is a real temple that's the antithesis of these high places. Okay, quickly, then in chapter number 16, there is King Ahaz. He's an evil king. What does he do? He sacrifices his own child, his own son, on the altar. That's bad. We all know that's bad. The reason what makes it worse is because that's what the pagans did. That's not what the Hebrews. They didn't sacrifice their children. Ahaz is not only tolerating the pagan practices, but he's incorporated it. Things might even seem to be progressively worse after reading through all the succession of bad kings in chapter 15, the cutting open of a pregnant woman, and now this in chapter 16. And if it couldn't get any worse for Ahaz, remember this is Ahaz, not Ahab, he's going to take the temple gold and silver and send it elsewhere. And then he's going to end up going into the temple and rebuilding things, restructuring things. This is all seen as a negative. And so matters are really getting worse now. This is a steeper decline. The curve has steepened. So now, after today, there's 5 readings left, and one would think that there's a lot that's got to be jam-packed in these final 5 readings. So don't leave me now. I'll catch you again tomorrow.